movies you can watch one director credit over Christmas break. I'm going through the list right now.
Are they good movies?
Are
they good movies?
I think they're good. And I have impeccable taste. Right?
Yeah.
No, I think some I like more than others, but you can watch one of them over the break. I'll post the list on Teams. I'll try to do it tomorrow or for some time.
Movie party at
Watch a
Alex.
movie, write a one-page paper.
You're not invited.
Yeah, but
You
you're
can watch
not.
anything
But
you
you're
want.
not.
You're not invited.
So it's okay.
I want to
make
make
Dana, Lana, and Brianna are all good.
Don't give me that look. Now you're making this class.
Curry's our middleman here.
This is how it works.
Okay, so I'll give you that. Everybody take out the documents. Take out your DBQ. So remember, the DBQ is what caused the session. Everyone take that out. I gave it to you yesterday. I gave you 1 day to look at it. Everyone at home had a chance to look at it. Let's talk quickly about this. Remember, this is just an essay. So the thing about it is, you get the documents in there, give outside information. I mean, stuff you know, your background material, you will do well on this. Last year, it was only the DBQ, and the students, because they only had 45 minutes last year to write one, which was awful. Who took AP Euro or did that? So, and you remember, you had no trouble with it?
It was the question I got was really stupid, but it wasn't that hard.
Good. I mean, that's always a good thing. Yeah, you might get a stupid question and you're stuck with what you get. But the people who did really well, most people did well. I mean, we always do better than the national average because we're so cool in here. But is that for me? I can leave. See you, suckers. You're leaving? You knew. You knew. The thing is about this is that if you get organized and don't have to go back and look through the documents once you start writing, you have a pretty good idea. If you're like that once you start writing, you're going to do well. And those are the people who did well. They just, they were well organized when they first read it, and they just started writing. If you have to go back and if you weren't organized, you didn't do a good outline, and you have to go back and look at the documents 3 times as you write, you're in trouble. And that's what happened to people who did not do as well as they thought. Even though they're good writers and felt good about it, they just ran out of time. Yeah.
Can I get a lunch today?
Huh?
Can I get a lunch?
I don't know. You can ask, because I have to order. I ordered 3.
You can only order 3?
No, I already did, but it's for today. I don't know.
Oh, as he's eating.
Yeah. Yeah, as you're eating.
Well,
He needs to keep his calories low.
Huh?
No. Okay.
I'll tell you what we can do. You can, why don't you put your mask on, run down to the rep, and say, can we get one more lunch for 121? You got 30 seconds, go. 29. 18, 8, 4. All right, let me tell you the secret. All right, so organization is really important. So read the question. Read the question. And I know it's all so stupid, but it really, I can't tell you how many essays I've read where it's clear they didn't read the question.
Not even a question.
Yeah, actually, this is the best kind. I like this because it makes a statement. The cause of the Civil War was conflicting sectional differences over slavery. So the main point of the question you have to get is cause of the Civil War and sectional differences, which is slavery, right? You have to address that in your thesis statement. But all you have to do is either you support this. So you write your essay with a couple paragraphs supporting that. You do not need every fact about why the Civil War started. Got it?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You don't need every fact how it started. Because this is going to be, remember I told you yesterday, 4-paragraph essays. I'm shortening it up because we have time limitations. You just need 2 good body paragraphs to show them. 2 big events from the 1850s or 1860 that led to secession. You don't need everything if you agree with the statement. If you disagree, then you have to show evidence going someplace else. But that's what you need to do. Don't write it as opinion. Don't write, I think the Civil War was caused by aliens, and I think Steve. No. Write down this as fact. Yes.
What do you mean by disagree and agree?
Say it again.
What do you mean by disagree and agree? Like, you agree with this? Like,
The statement.
The statement.
oh,
You believe the ultimate cause, and so you probably would say, yes, slavery was a big deal, but there's something else.
oh, if I disagree with it.
Does that make sense?
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So are we trying to find the ultimate cause and for secession, and then the ultimate cause for slavery?
No, just secession. Just secession.
So would that be the first part of your thesis, if you agree with it?
Yeah. Just don't write, don't like actually copy the sentence, but get the main point that slavery was started.
Because of babies.
Yeah. And then what ties it all together? Something for a why, something that ties it together, and then you need two examples of move from it, ties together like ideology. Is that what you said?
Nice racism.
Racism, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is just an example?
Huh?
So this is just an example?
No, that statement is what you have to write your essay on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then, you notice then there are 8 very short documents, and those are the ones you have to use. Show your hand.
Are we allowed to have an outline for that?
Yes, I want you to have the outline already made. Have the outline made, have it all ready to go, so once you guys log in, you can start writing. And you can either write by hand and take a picture. Why am I doing this like a bad politician? And fellow Americans. But write it by hand and take a picture, or just type a Word document. Sound good? And you will turn in the outline. Have that done. If you come in there and don't have that done and start trying to do everything at the beginning, when the period ends, you won't be finished. And you will give me garbage. And I know you don't want to give me garbage, and you're better than that. You're better than garbage. What a weird way to say it. And,
Wait, I have another question.
yes, another question.
So can you use the conflicting sectional differences over slavery as one of your like A or B's?
Well, find a major issue that shows that conflicting sectional differences. So like,
the ultimate cause of the Civil War was the conflicting sectional issue of the ideology.
yeah, ideology or something.
Is that your why then?
And then, yeah, that's your why.
Okay.
But then for like your A and B, use things like the election of 1860 or the Dred Scott decision.
Slavery.
Well, the election of 1860, we'll get to it more, but it was split, the Democrats were split over the issue of slavery.
So you don't have to mention slavery in your thesis.
You have to say, if you agree with it, you have to say that the Civil War was ultimately caused by differences over slavery. You do have
Because
to
of
say.
their differences in ideology.
Yes.
Okay. I got it.
We'll word it a little better. That was pretty happy the way, but yeah.
But I get the point.
And then for your A and B, have specific, have like facts, and you can, because the documents relate to the election of 1860. Or, think about all those big things, like Compromise of think about all the big things. Compromise of 1850. Kansas, Nebraska, Bleeding Kansas, Dred Scott, John Brown, election of 1860. Aren't those all really big events, and all of them directly led to secession?
But it's like the annexation of Texas too.
You can use that, but that would kind of be the beginnings of it.
Oh.
I would use the annexation of Texas. Remember that opening paragraph, you need context, which is the backstory. You need 2 or 3 sentences in your opening paragraph, then your thesis. That would be a good thing to say. Starting with manifest destiny and the annexation of Texas, the sectional divide would grow. And if you don't use the Compromise of 1850 in your body paragraphs, use it in context. Everyone catch what I did there? If you give some background material, the big thing is, first off, it makes for a stronger essay. It shows you understand the material. You're kind of showing off. Look what I know. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not a jerk about it, but show what you know. But also, there's 7 points the College Board gives for DBQ. You show background, that's 1 point. You're a lot of the way there, aren't you? A good thesis and your essay organized to it, that's 2. That's almost half your score. You use, on a regular AP exam, you use 6 documents. But remember, for this one, you only have to use 4. Remember that? And you paraphrase it. Don't summarize the documents. Paraphrase the purpose and relate it to something you know. outside. So relate to something you know. And then cite the document. You do that for 4 of them. That's a point. You're almost now to passing. Hey, you still got to write a good essay. But, you know. And then there's one more thing I've been saving for the last thing. Are you ready?
The heading.
For half of the essay, for half of the document,
Title.
you have to recreate it in a diorama. No.
That is not funny.
For half of the documents, for half of them. Am I recording this? This would be a good thing to record, don't you think? I'm recording this. Okay. For half of the documents, you need to give a little bit more analysis. 1 sentence. Basically, why they have that position. Why the document says that. You have to have 1 sentence about why. And the College Board, and we call this, and don't get mad at me, but it actually makes sense. They call it HAP. Because it's happy. No. Remember when I told you that you had to read a document, and the first thing you look at is think about historical content? H. Think about the audience, who they're talking to. A. Point of view. P. Purpose. P. All you're trying to do is give a little bit more information about why they have that point of view. For half the documents. So how many do you have to do that for this essay? 2. Just 1 more sentence for 2 of them. That's it. 1 more sentence. So follow this template. Blank. So like the author of the document, or like the Democratic Party believes, what do they believe from the document? Because of, the Republican Party did not want expansion of slavery territories because they were free soil and feared slave power. Something like that. I put it also on the posting for today. So if you go to Teams, our advantage, Teams bugs me, but there's also some decent things about it. Life is like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Blank. The author believes or shows their position because of HAP.
Awesome.
And I posted that today. And I'll post it again tomorrow. It's just 1 sentence. Follow that basic template. I know not exactly, but follow it basically. And that's all you need to do. Now, I think if you show a good job showing the purpose of it, you're not summarizing, but explaining what the author wants you to believe and use that as evidence related to something you know, that's good analysis of the document. This additional sentence, this is what we call a hoop you have to jump through for the AP exam. It's not bad, so I included it in here, but that's what we're doing. Make sense to everybody? That's what life is. So it's additional analysis. Don't directly repeat yourself, but additional analysis. Yeah.
So, in the essay, you want us to say, where you want us to mention the document, and then in parentheses, just say doc 1 or whatever?
Yeah, doc 1 or doc A, whatever. Are those numbers or letters? They're numbers. I've used samples with them. Okay. And the documents, you know, also really short. They give you space, jot down a few things. You also notice something else, I hope. I've given you some samples here, and also some I've handed out. But here, I posted it on Teams. This is okay, I changed a little bit, but it's a DBQ they did last year. And analyze the reasons the United States dropping the atomic bomb in World War II. I'll give you 2 documents, and then here are 3 samples of an opening paragraph and 1 paragraph showing context, thesis, and how documents used in a paragraph. These are from 3 different students last year. You can see my comments. These are good. In fact, all 3 of them did really well on the AP exam. They just were ready. They felt good about it. These are 3 examples. 1, 2, 3 of seniors this year now. And so that is posted. Take a look at that just to give you an idea of what to look for. And one more thing. Also on here are practice outlines. Different questions. I'm just giving you an idea of what they look at. So here's one about the effect of the Industrial Revolution on America. Very good brainstorm list, isn't it? I mean, that's a good one. Lots of good information. And you got to be able to brainstorm 10 to 15 things. If you can't do that, you're not ready. You're not ready, period. If you can't name 15 things from the 1850s, you got to go back and study. And don't sit there and think, oh, I can do it because I'll write it on my outline. No, it doesn't work that way. If you got to go back every single time to remind yourself of something you should know, think how much time you just wasted. If you know it, you can just write it. So you have to be able to have some recall. Does anyone here have a photographic memory? Why not? No, I don't like to brag. Does anybody know somebody with a photographic memory? And don't you hate them?
My dad, so I don't.
Oh, good for you. Okay. Yeah, there's some people that doesn't make you smart, but it's really nice way to recall. And that way you have to be able to recall stuff. Because if you always have to go back and look something up, you just wasted time and the limited amount of space in your short-term memory. Which is actually very true. So here's basic thesis. This is on, you can look on this more. But look at the outline. Isn't this a good outline? And what she did here is, she put down, she wants to talk about capitalists and consumers. And that relates to document E. Does that make sense then? Ties it all together, what she knows and what's in the document. Machine tools, she used a lot of documents. She went to town on this one. But supply and demand market, and then what's the star? That's where she knows she's going to add that one additional sentence, HAP. Does that make sense? And there's a, see, same deal? So I'll give you 3 examples of this. So, 3 additional examples. You have that, something like that.
They can't draw a straight line.
Huh?
They can't draw a straight line.
No, no one can. That's science.
That's science.
Any questions? Are you excited about this? Why don't you just do it now? Clear your desk. If you have any questions, send me a note. If we have to maybe talk, we have to do a phone chat on Teams, phone chat. Or send me a note if you're asking about something, or an idea of what you're going, but think about as many specifics and facts you can put in there. And relate the documents to facts. Don't just say, they were upset. No, give me an example of how they're upset. Give me as many facts as possible. 4 paragraphs, most of them will be uphill, so bring good shoes. Any question you can think of right now? All right, go take your notes out. So, right before 4th period, everyone's going to log in. Camera's on. You have your outline. I'm probably going to do, everyone, show your outline to the camera. And then, which will be exciting. I'll record that. I'll remember that moment. I'll take a still of it. Put it in the scrapbook. But make sure you have a good outline. And then you'll have the period to write. If you need a couple minutes after you finish that last sentence, but it's going to be done at the end of the period. Is anyone going to? I'm going to ask again. Who's thinking about writing? Handwriting? Anybody? Thinking about it? Okay. It's up to you. And whatever you feel most comfortable with. Last year they could handwrite it and then take a picture too. I would say probably maybe 20% handwriting. I actually would rather prefer handwriting myself. Oh, the great handwriting is a lot harder. I mean, it's just the way it is. But to write it, I feel better handwriting. I just think better. I make more mistakes. Me personally, I make more mistakes typing. Yes.
Are we going to be typing it on the AP test?
I don't know. Traditionally, the AP exam is handwritten, all handwritten. But because of last year, when the beginnings of the pandemic, and since I can't imagine we'll be really in a position by early May to do it all in a big room, my guess is it'll be typing. That's my guess. If, who knows, we could be, they have the regular exam, then it'll be handwritten, and we'll just adapt when we have to.
What are we doing Friday?
What's that?
The nurses
Well, and there's another one coming up, but we only bought enough for 100 million people. And yeah, as it turns out, the Trump administration turned down in October an opportunity to buy 200 million more doses. Ideology, and partly because it's made by West Germany, or West Germany. Boy, am I old. By Germany.
West Germany.
I know, I'm in Cold War. I still occasionally about Berlin, West Berlin, and East Berlin.
What are we doing Friday? After the
Time out. Okay, so let's go take the notes out. We're gonna hit the track and run.
Yeah,
Or stay.
I think he said it like he was waiting for.
Yeah, were you waiting for me to ask that question?
Yeah.
Or stay. We didn't have to do that.
100%.
I'll just send the voice.
No, yeah, it's just.
It's just for time, you have to stay like under a certain time or something.
Okay, so we got the John Brown, didn't we? No, we're just gonna do, we'll be doing Civil War.
We got to Harpers Ferry.
We're doing Civil War stuff.
RP John Brown.
John Brown. So we got the John Brown. Where do we get, where do you get
We
to?
got to Harpers Ferry.
Do we talk about them, what they're gonna do? Yeah, trigger a slave rebellion. And the thing is, when he got there, he hesitated. He hesitated. He really did not want to start a full-scale slave rebellion. At least, probably. And he hesitated, and there were virtually no plantations around Harpers Ferry. It's mountainous, there's it's mountain valleys, you're just not good for agriculture. So there weren't a lot of slaves to join. He's gonna have to get out of Harpers Ferry and move south. So that kind of shows when he got there, it's like, ugh, I don't really want this. He was trying to make a symbolic statement. And basically, in many ways, become a martyr. But he was quickly, this is in Harpers Ferry, the firehouse. They barricaded themselves in there, and they were quickly surrounded by Marines and cavalry from Washington, D.C., under the command of Robert E. Lee. And yeah, like another one of those strange coincidences, but really small army. So, and eventually they would use a ladder as a battering ram and break through. Brown would be wounded, and the rebellion ended. Nobody joined it, but you can't even begin to imagine what a big deal this was. What a big deal. And by the way, looking back at that, what was the court case that says blacks are
Dred Scott.
the Dred Scott decision? Dred Scott. By the way, I repeat, everything I put up, I showed you today, I post it, and I'll post it again tomorrow for all the things to look at, right? Everyone got that? I want to make sure that's clear. Okay. And so, Dred Scott decision. Who was elected president in 1856?
No, Buchanan.
James Buck Buchanan. And then, but who did really well, terrifying the South? Who's free soil, free labor, Fremont. And, what was the big debate over Dred Scott, but for the whether running for Senate? Lincoln Douglas. What was the doctrine where Douglas said, you don't have to have slaves if you don't have slave codes? Yeah, that's Freeport doctrine. So, John Brown would be taken prisoner. And this confirmed every fear the South had. And he's going to be tried for insurrection, starting a rebellion, which is treason, and that's a capital offense. Capital means potential execution.
He was captured?
Yes, he was captured. He was wounded and captured there. And at his trial, he turned it into an indictment against slavery. He used the pulp.
Where was he tried? Where was he tried?
In Richmond, Virginia. He used, because that's capital. He used that trial. He used his testimony to bash slavery. And his last words, in fact, we're going to listen to these. I'll give you a little bit of this, but here's John Brown being condemned. And you notice that hundreds of companies and companies of militia. Remember, the militia is very powerful in the South. Slave rebellion. One of the militiamen was also probably the most famous actor in America. He was a member of the Richmond Greys, which is a company name of a militia.
John Wilkes Booth.
John Wilkes Booth.
Wow.
And what would Booth do 6 years later? Small country. He'd be the assassin of Abraham Lincoln. So just kind of amazing how these things all tie together. So in it, John Brown would pass a note to his guard, which would be published in the newspapers. And in it, he laid out a very scary prediction. And first off, to be very clear, when he says the guilty land, he means all the United States. The North and the South, we are all culpable. And therefore, to this day, we are culpable because that is our legacy. That is what we are. And the crime is slavery. That's the crime. And he's predicting what?
War.
Yeah, Civil War. Now, here he's being very disingenuous, isn't he? Because he says, I flatter myself without very much bloodshed it might be done. You were talking slave rebellion. It's hard to get bloodier than that, even though they would get bloodier than that. So he's being disingenuous. He's trying to make himself look better. But this would be huge. This would be read in newspapers north and the south and play into all their ideologies, all their disagreements, all their fears would come out. And so this is a great, at Harpers Ferry, which I think I told you this yesterday. It's beautiful there. If you get a chance, go. Did I tell you that yesterday?
No.
Oh, it's the most beautiful, one of the most beautiful places I've ever been in. I've been to Jordan, Montana.
Wow.
But this is a poster of it. It is so amazing. It kind of blew me away. It's one of those, I heard it was, oh, it's really pretty there. Wow, is it pretty. The only problem I had there is I've been there twice, and the first time it was 105 degrees and 103% humidity. I'm not making that up. It's beyond the saturation point. If you've been to the east, southeast, you know what I'm talking about. Wow. It's one of those you take 3 steps and you're just drenched. So I took a little away from the enjoyment, but we're going to play you just a little bit of the trial. They do a good job. This is the video they show. No. Have you ever heard the music? John Brown's God. Yeah. Yeah, 'cause he gets school. Have you heard the music for this? John Brown's God. By the way, looking at the grave is not a pleasant image. That's bodies in the grave. This is what the Northern would say. By the way, you also notice Battle for the Republic, 4 years later, used this music. Yeah, it's basically John Brown's body lies moldering in the grave, repeat. So let's get to the reaction. The reaction to John Brown, what do we have for lunch today?
I'm giving you an extra. Turkey, gravy, mashed potatoes, green beans, and then I'll give you an extra one of those, and 2 pizzas.
Awesome, all right.
Alright.
Thank you.
Anybody else need any? I've got extras.
That's one?
Going once, twice, okay?
Surprisingly.
Thanks. What?
Reminds you of the prison.
It's good. They do a good job. So, the reaction to John Brown. John Brown, he would do this even confirmed to many Southerners the positive good theory of slavery. And the positive good theory, no slave joined, so they must like slavery. Now, this is garbage. It's pure garbage, but remember, the whole thing is just an illusion. Also, all free soilers are John Browns. That means what party are just simply John Browns? Yeah. And this strengthened the slave codes and the militia, like Nat Turner's rebellion. So this is the way the South looked at it. This played every period. All they could talk about was John Brown. But in the North, they talked about too. What did Herman Melville, the author of Moby Dick, call them? A meteor in the night. This glowing, bright in the whole sky. The North looked at him as, first off, I got to add, the North was split. There's a lot of them thought he was just a terrorist. And they were worried that the South might react too much. They were worried about civil war. They're very, and the word I'm going to use is timid. There's a lot of timid people politically. If we just keep things going the same way, I won't have to make a sacrifice. But to many Northerners, he represented somebody who's finally standing up for freedom. And that's why I played you John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave. That represents freedom. And look at the repressive Southern system. They execute free people in the North. Do anything possible to keep slavery. That seemed to prove to many Northerners, our system is better. We don't need militias to stop 40% of the population from rebelling. We don't need that. Okay, as it turned out, there would be a rebellion in 1877, but that's another story down the road. What a big deal. It's hard to find a bigger issue than John Brown. But we will. Because what's coming? Oh, the election. The election of 1860. Yeah. I'll go back. Everyone write down the election of 1860? Okay. And the thing about the election of 1860, as the Democrats met in Baltimore to pick their nominee, and they're already bitterly divided. Why were they divided? Slavery. The issue of slavery and free soil, the Democrats are divided, even though the Southerners do make a big part of it. So let's get to right here. They met in Baltimore, and Southern Democrats walked out. Northern Democrats would nominate the little giant, Stephen Douglas. Once again, sticking with popular sovereignty. Once again, the little giant. And yeah, Southerners don't trust him after the Freeport Doctrine. Because Douglas was not a zealot for slavery. He was a zealot for Stephen Douglas. He wanted to be president. So Southern Democrats would meet in Charleston, South Carolina. Makes sense, right? South Carolina. It was very hackneyed, disorganized, but they would nominate the Vice President of the United States. You know who this is? By the way, great mustache, right? His name is, of course, John C. Breckinridge. Yes, John C. Breckinridge. I should add, as you can see from there, this picture was taken in 1863. What's he wearing? A Confederate uniform. Yep. And what's his slogan? Remember states' rights. But states' rights was just code.
Now there's two Democrats running.
Yep. And so the Democrats are fatally split.
Well, so that's a big reason why Lincoln won.
That's the reason.
Yeah, because that's.
Yeah. And they were split because they thought Douglas wasn't strong enough to protect slavery.
Right, they're fighting.
Oh, we're not done. There's another party. For one election would jump in and would take from old Northern Whigs who are gone and some Democrats. Another party. So they're split again. It's the Constitutional Union Party.
The American Party.
And their whole platform, the Constitution, meaning they had no platform. And the Constitution did not deal with the problems of slavery, or there wouldn't be a problem with slavery.
So then how did they answer a question when it's like, what are your thoughts on slavery?
They're only, remember, just like what Zachary Taylor said, the battle point of this, they just said, we believe in union in the Constitution. How can you disagree with that? Yeah, makes sense to me. And their nominee is, and I swear to you, I am not making this up, John C. Bell.
Yeah, true.
Oh! Now, so the Republicans, so they have Bell. So the Republicans know we just elect a sentient being who won't screw up and will be president. There are a lot of controversial Republicans who had long histories. And that's why Lincoln, who nobody really felt had a chance, but when they had their nominating convention at this big temporary convention hall they built called the Wigwam, which was literally a fire trap, 10,000 people would have been one spark, poof. He was actually back in Springfield waiting. He didn't have a real record. He was only elected to one term. Yes, he did the spot resolution in Congress back in the war, but then was out of office. He looked good in the Lincoln-Douglas debates, but he didn't win. So he has no real record. So they could create an image. Lincoln was the perfect dark horse. Abraham Lincoln. He had no background. He didn't have that many enemies. It was a good idea. That's the advantage of dark horses. They don't have a background. And, I mean, the current president, Trump, didn't have a political background. They invented one, like through his television show and things like that. Now, Biden did have a long record, but then by 2020, Trump had a very long record too. And so, that's Lincoln. Don't worry about Hannibal Hamlin. He was a kind of a non-entity, and they push him off the ticket for political reasons in 1864. So, Lincoln. And Lincoln got the nomination, and the Republican platform, and they could create this image of him, which is partially true. And what you got to get is the free labor idea of a guy who started with nothing, but with his initiative, he made himself into something. And why is that important? Because the Northern system has opportunity if you work hard. Lincoln literally was born in a log cabin with a dirt floor. He learned to read. In fact, he read his law books or did Euclidean geometry by the light of the fireplace. So this self-made man. That fits in with free labor. Yeah.
Is Abraham Lincoln a Republican?
Yes, he's a Republican. He's a Republican. So he would be the first Republican president. Now the party's going to make a big shift about 15 or 16 years later. But part of what they portrayed then is him working as a young man doing hard manual jobs, especially Abe Lincoln, the rail splitter. So splitting the rails for the split rail fence. And here he is, you see the wedge, and they would make a split, put the wedge in, and then pound it in. And these axes, if you ever used one of these axes, they are heavy. Because it's a sledgehammer, too. So use one side as a sledgehammer to beat the wedge in. If you've chopped a lot of wood and have ever had to split wood, you know how it's a workout. And so that's what we're going to have to do. That's going to be your Christmas break assignment. Each of you must chop a cord of wood.
Easy.
That's so fancy.
I'm actually down for that.
Oh, yeah, I know. Aren't those fancy? And here he is, the last rail split by honest old Abe. By the way, he hated the name Abe with a passion. You did not call him Abe. He didn't like Abraham either. He preferred to be called Mr. Lincoln. His wife called him Mr. Lincoln. Whatever. But it says, the last rail split by honest old Abe, and here it is, the Democratic Party split. Clever cartoon. Yet it has this strange, creepy, doesn't it look like a horror story baby? Like one of those, like a raggedy hand coming at you. Ah. And then this creepy dog. Okay, so.
The dog's so sad.
So here's the Republican platform. And the Republican platform is a combination of Democrat and Whig ideas. So the Democratic Party, a lot of the old Democrats, they became Republicans, free soils. So, free soil, government aid for the railroad. Give everybody who wants, small farmers, 160 acres of government land, called a homestead. A tariff. Don't all these sound familiar? Well, we mentioned this, we haven't mentioned this one yet.
Wait, so what did they do with the railroad?
Government aid. Give land and money to companies to build a railroad.
Okay.
And I'll tell you more about that.
Okay.
And then vague idea of workers' rights. Very much the idea of protecting workers, because remember what I told you. This is still the legacy of the old Democratic Party protecting workers. Jackson's party. That's what they thought. It would become much more pro-business. In fact, totally pro-business by 1880. And the thing is, almost all, except for this vague one, but almost all would pass. Why? No senators to stop it. Gee, I wonder what's going to happen. Yeah.
Are there any parties today?
Better what?
Are there any political parties?
No. The Democrats do a little bit more. The Republicans give better rhetoric about it, but Republican politics are very much pro-big business. 100%. Democrats are pretty pro-big business too. They do a little bit more for workers, but Democrats used to be. And they very purposely abandoned that in the late 1970s. In fact, I'm just reading history about that, and it's a very interesting time. Don't you remember the late 70s?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. Okay, so, yeah.
So what did the tariff protect?
Remember that's a tax on imports to keep out foreign.
Okay, I was just wondering if there was like a specific one.
Just generic, yeah.
Okay.
So let's get to a couple cartoons. Cartoon! So here is Lincoln, Douglas, and Breckinridge ripping apart the country. And here's John C. Bell with glue putting it together.
Wow.
Here's a good one showing the Democrat split. You know, the donkeys trying to take them both ways. Douglas, Breckinridge. And here comes Lincoln and the Republicans on a train. And the big thing this is, it's not just splitting them, it's new, modern. And let me show you one more thing for the bell rings.
Bell rings.
After the bell ring. Here might be my favorite one. Here's Lincoln, and there's a split rail fence, and he's running with Douglas. And there's a slave in the fence. That's the issue of slavery. And Douglas says, how can I get over this rail fence? The slave is saying, you'll find me in this here fence, Master Douglas. And here's Lincoln saying, it can't stop me, for I built it. But what's my favorite part is, doesn't it look like he's carrying a ham on a stick here? And I got ham! It's supposed to be an axe.
How come the South couldn't stop the?
How come the South couldn't stop yeah, so they're not voting. Alrighty then. Throat gets so dry, start drying up and then this mass. Good. Oh yeah.
Why? What my ex? Sure.
Yeah, I know. Those damn